Hello, my name is Anwu, and today we will be learning about numbers, arithmetic operators, variables, and the print function. First, we will cover numbers. You might be wondering what there is to teach about numbers, since, well, they're numbers. Unfortunately, Python is not so simple. In Python, floats include decimals where integers do not. The maximum value for a float is around 1.8 times 10 to the power of 308, and a minimum is around 2.2 times 10 to the power of negative 308. Simply put, you don't really need to care about how big or small the numbers get. The main problem comes from the fact that it can only hold up to 7 digits in the decimal place. Anything more, it'll translate into terms of e minus or plus a number. In other words, it'll still hold the value, but it'll type in e instead. Integers are pretty much the same for every language, including Python. In Python, it can cover any whole number. This includes negative numbers, but it cannot cover decimal places, and this includes 0.0. Integers can cover any whole numbers due to the fact that it'll automatically change into a long if the number is greater than 17 digits. A long is just a larger integer, and this will be covered in a future video. Operators in Python also generally remain the same across every other language. Addition is the plus sign, subtraction is the minus sign, and so on. The percent sign represents what is called a modulus, which takes the remainder after dividing. For example, 5 modulus 2 will result in 1, since 5 divided by 2's remainder is also 1. There are also shortcut notations for typing the common phrase variable equals variable followed by an operator. This can be rewritten as operator followed by an equal sign. Next, we will cover variables in Python. Variables in Python are made easy for usage. Instead of defining them as certain categories like integer or string, Python automatically detects them and does this job for you. This results in you not needing to care about defining them as such. You can call for them the same way you define them. You can also change the variable the same way you initialize the variable. Variables can also be printed in the print function. Now we will talk about the print function. In Python, the print function is very easy to call and will output text to the terminal. It can output integers, strings, characters, and so on, but in our case for this video, we'll be primarily focusing on integers, floats, and strings. Some things to note about the print statement is that it starts from a new line each time, so you can also use this to create a blank line by not putting in anything between parentheses. Additionally, typing in \n inside the parentheses will make the rest of the print statement on a new line. This can be done multiple times to create as many lines as you want. When printing variables, you just need to put the name. When it comes to strings, you just need to put a pair of double quotation marks or single quotation mark between the text. When printing maths, the print statement will automatically simplify whatever expression you put in. And this is the same for variables. If you put in 1 plus 2 plus 3 inside a print statement, it'll result in 6. In order to print 1 plus 2 plus 3 without simplification, you will need to turn it into a string, and this can be done by putting quotation marks. This is also the same case if you define it as a variable. If you put a variable, for example, x is equal to 1 plus 2 plus 3, it will not be a string. It'll automatically simplify into 6. And finally, as a side note, adding commas will add any input to the print statement and also adds a space in between. And with the side note, we can finally move on to a basic Hello World program. For this video, we will be referring to the first video in order to download Visual Studio Code. and this is what we'll be using for all future videos. The first step to starting to make a program is to go to Files, and you should click New File. And what this does is it just creates a basic template of an unsaved file. So the next thing to do is to save it. If you're on Windows, the shortcut is Ctrl-Shift-S. Well, you could go to Files and then Save As. You could save it anywhere you want, but make sure that the file name is representing whatever the program will do. In our case, we will be making a Hello World program. Now before you click save, make sure you put .py at the end, and what this will do is it'll convert it into a Python file. If you don't want to put .py, you can also just click save as type and then find whatever is Python. And then you can click save. Since I have already installed this before working on the video, there might be some pop-ups to the bottom right corner saying that you might need to install py line, and make sure you do this. Additionally, you should also click extensions, which is the building block looking category, and download the first recommended. And this will simply make Visual Studio Code into Python. And then after you downloaded this and after you finished installing pyline, you can go back to Explorer, click helloworld.py, and you can X out of the extensions page. To begin programming, you first need to open up the terminal if you have not already. You can do this by going to the terminal page and clicking New Terminal. The only function we have covered today is the print function, so we will begin by printing Hello World. And this will simply put out Hello World as a string. As such. Another thing we have learned about the print statement is that you can add integers together. So for example, 1 plus 2 plus 3 will not result in 1 plus 2 plus 3. It will result in 6 as such. And the way we can prevent this from simplifying is we can turn it into a string by putting double quotation marks, which results in a string instead of a simplification. Another thing we have learned is that you can actually separate print statements via two methods. First is to create another print function with nothing inside, and this will separate these two strings. Another way this could have been done is by putting the /n, and this will create a new line with a space in between, and 1 plus 2 plus 3. Now this will not have the same effect since there is a middle space in between, while this does not. So another way we can fix this problem is to add another /n, and it is the same as before. Another thing we have covered are variables, and we can call variables by saying just the name of the variable. So in our case, we can just call this our word, and we can set that as a string. And then by saying print word, it'll print the word, which is a string, and it prints only testing. If you want to combine a string and an integer, you cannot use a plus symbol. For example, if you plus 5, this will result in an error. since integer cannot be put with a string. A way you can solve this is by adding the comma, which will add on the 5 with a space bar. As such. And this concludes about everything we have learned so far. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you can email them to kyunrura@gmail.com.